Winters in Orlaya were always biting cold. Jenna Graham stepped out of the taxi, pulling her camel-colored coat tighter as she walked forward. She hurried to the entrance of the Peninsula Hotel, only to be stopped by the security guard on duty. "Miss, there's a private event in progress. Please show your invitation." She fumbled through her pockets but couldn't find it, only then remembering she'd left it at home. "It's my best friend's birthday party," she said, a note of anxiety in her voice. "Can you please just let me in?" The guard, naturally, wouldn't agree. Just as she was at a loss, a hand with well-defined knuckles extended an invitation toward him. "She's with me." Hearing that familiar voice, Jenna froze. She turned her head and sure enough saw that incredibly familiar face. "Little uncle," she stammered. Ethan Lancaster was dressed in a bespoke suit, looking sharp and impossibly elegant, his handsome face carrying an air of authority that belonged only to those in power. Seeing the name on the invitation, the guard's demeanor became exceptionally respectful, and he immediately ushered Ethan and Jenna inside. "Jenna, let's go," Ethan prompted, noticing she was still in a daze. She finally snapped back to reality and walked into the ballroom. The tall man stopped in front of her. She looked up at him, her voice hesitant. "Little uncle, when did you get back?" Ethan's expression was neutral. "Just today, made it just in time for Claire's birthday." "So, are you leaving again?" He picked up a glass of champagne, pouring one for himself to warm up. "Not for a while." A wave of joy washed over Jenna, but she could only use Claire as an excuse. "Claire will be so happy." Ethan gave a faint smile. "That girl is afraid I'll keep her in line. She'd probably rather I didn't come back at all." Jenna spoke softly. "Being kept in line means someone cares about her. Unlike her. In this world, no one really cared." Except, she looked up at him, about to say something, but Ethan had already finished his champagne and set the glass down. Like an elder, he instructed, "Have fun on your own. No drinking. I have to go mingle." With that, he walked toward the center of the ballroom. The words Jenna had been about to say were caught in her throat. All she could do was watch his retreating back, the loneliness in her eyes palpable. In moments, he was surrounded by guests. It was always like this. She seemed so close to him, yet she could never break into his world. Although she called Ethan Lancaster little uncle, it was only because he was her best friend, Claire's maternal uncle. Since she and Claire were close, she just followed suit. Beyond that, their lives never intersected. Jenna sat dejectedly in a corner, a stark contrast to the lively banquet. Claire's birthday parties were always attended by the city's elite. The Lancasters were busy socializing, and no one had time to pay her any mind. It wasn't until 2 hours later that the party ended. After saying goodbye to Claire, Jenna wanted to catch one last glimpse of Ethan, but she couldn't find him anywhere. She had no choice but to turn and leave the hotel. The December wind in Orlaya was fierce. She shivered at the hotel entrance and was just taking out her phone to call a ride when a black Maybach pulled up smoothly in front of her. The window rolled down and Ethan's handsome face looked out at her. "Still here?" Jenna lowered her head. "Just leaving, waiting for a car." Ethan glanced at the tip of her nose, red from the cold. "Get in. I'll give you a ride." The passenger door opened. Jenna froze for a few seconds before getting in. The car was as warm as spring. Ethan leaned over with practiced ease to fasten her seatbelt. The familiar gesture made Jenna feel as though a lifetime had passed. She never thought she would experience this kind of gentleness from him again. "Thank you, little uncle," she said, a little lost in the moment. Ethan seemed to think nothing of it, as if it were a simple, casual act. Sitting in his passenger seat again, Jenna was no longer as talkative as she used to be. The car fell quiet. After driving for a while, she noticed the route seemed wrong. "Little uncle," she said uncertainly, "this doesn't look like the way to my place." Ethan's hands didn't move from the steering wheel. "I know," he said calmly. Soon, the car stopped in front of a shopping mall. Jenna looked at him, utterly confused. Ethan unbuckled his seatbelt, left her with a simple "wait for me," and walked into the mall. He came out 10 minutes later, holding a gift box. Leaning in toward her from outside the car, he whispered in her ear, "Jenna, it's snowing." Only then did Jenna realize that tiny snowflakes had begun to fall from the misty sky, dotting the bustling city. It was the first snow of the year. He handed her the exquisite gift box. "Happy birthday!" Jenna was stunned, a quiet warmth spreading through her heart. She was an orphan, raised by relatives, and didn't even know her own birthday. When she was 14, at her first of Claire's birthday parties, Ethan had seen the envy in her eyes and asked when her birthday was. Jenna didn't know, only that it had apparently been snowing on the day she was born. So Ethan had said, "From now on, the day it snows is your birthday." Ever since that year, he had given her a birthday gift every time it snowed. Jenna's doe-like eyes shimmered with unshed tears as she accepted the gift. "Thank you," she said, her voice choked with emotion. Ethan ruffled her hair but said nothing. The car pulled up in front of her apartment building. She got out, clutching the gift box, but didn't leave right away. Instead, she hesitated, looking at Ethan's profile. She had moved out to live alone after she started working. Her apartment was empty and lonely. Since it was her birthday, she didn't want to be alone. Just as she was mustering the courage to ask Ethan to come up with her, his phone rang. When he answered, the surroundings were so quiet that she could hear a woman's coquettish, sweet voice from the phone. Jenna's entire body went rigid, but the corners of Ethan's eyes crinkled with a smile. "I'll be right back," he said gently. After hanging up, he looked at her. "You should get inside. It's too cold out here." Without another word, he drove off in a hurry. Jenna stood frozen, watching his car disappear into the distance, the unfamiliar woman's voice still echoing in her ears. Who was that? Who could make the second master of the Lancaster family rush over with a single phone call? A bitter feeling rose in her chest. She flexed her numb fingers and picked up the handwritten card on the gift box. "Happy birthday, little one." Little one, an endless bitterness consumed her heart once more. In his eyes, would she forever be just a child? But 3 years ago, she had clearly confessed her feelings to him. At a party 3 years ago, Jenna, thinking he was drunk, had dared to steal a kiss. But as it turned out, Ethan wasn't drunk at all and caught her red-handed. In that moment, braver than she had ever been in her life, Jenna confessed to him right then and there. However, Ethan, faced with a confession from his niece's best friend, was neither angry nor shocked. He was completely unfazed. "Jenna, don't joke like that. You're still a child." He hadn't taken her seriously at all, dismissing it as a youthful crush. She didn't know how long she stood there. Clenching the card in her fist, she turned and went upstairs. In the biting wind, her silhouette was desolate and lonely. "Ethan Lancaster, I wasn't joking. And I'm not a child anymore. When will you ever like me, even just a little?" The next day, Claire called Jenna and asked her to meet. In the coffee shop, Claire personally fastened a necklace around her neck. "Jenna, it snowed yesterday. This is your make-up birthday gift." As her best friend, Claire, like Ethan, considered the first snow to be Jenna's birthday. A warm feeling flowed through Jenna. "Thank you, Claire." Claire waved her hand dismissively. "What's there to thank me for between us?" Jenna forced a smile, but her thoughts drifted back to Ethan. She stirred her coffee, lost in thought. Claire quickly noticed her distraction. "Jenna, is something on your mind?" Jenna snapped back to the present, offering a cover-up smile and a random excuse. "It's nothing. The magazine needs a celebrity interview, and I haven't found anyone yet." She had become a journalist after graduation and was now working for a magazine. "That's nothing," Claire said nonchalantly. "Just get my little uncle to help you out, right? He's famous enough." Jenna shook her head. "The magazine already invited him. The assistant at Lancaster Corp said he doesn't do interviews." "That's because he didn't know it was you." As she spoke, Claire was already dialing Ethan's number. Before Jenna could stop her, the call connected. "Little uncle, Jenna has an interview she needs to complete. Could you help her out?" Jenna watched Claire anxiously, terrified that Ethan would think she was being troublesome. Soon, Claire hung up with a smile. "Little uncle said yes, he's free today." Jenna felt a surge of excitement. This was the first time Ethan had ever agreed to an external interview, but she didn't dare flatter herself into thinking it was for her. After all, Claire had made the call. He was probably just finding it hard to refuse his niece. "Little uncle just left the office and is heading home. He can pick you up on the way." Claire had a dinner date with her boyfriend, so she left after giving Jenna the details. Less than 20 minutes later, Ethan arrived and picked Jenna up, taking her to his private apartment. "Little uncle, thank you for agreeing to the interview." As they got out of the elevator, she followed a step behind him to his apartment door. Ethan said nothing, his expression unreadable, which only reinforced Jenna's belief that he had agreed solely as a favor to Claire. She lowered her gaze in silence, but as she did, her eyes fell on the numbers he was keying into the lock 1221. Her heart jolted violently. The first time she met Ethan, she was 12 and he was 21. After meeting him, Jenna felt for the first time that the world was a place worth loving. That was why she had once told him that 1221 was her favorite number. Little Uncle was using 1221 as his door code. What did that mean? He knew what that number meant to her. Her heart began to race uncontrollably. Jenna looked at him tentatively, her eyes filled with a mixture of shock and hope. As if he knew what she was thinking, Ethan explained coolly, "It's my girlfriend's birthday." In an instant, all her hopeful excitement vanished, replaced by a sharp pain in her heart. He had a new girlfriend already. She kept her head down, not saying a word, and followed him silently into the apartment. Ethan took off his suit jacket and tossed it casually on the sofa, then poured her a glass of water. "Let's begin." Jenna pushed down the bitterness in her heart, took a recorder and notebook from her bag, composed herself, and sat down. The interview went quickly. The questions had been prepared in advance and revolved mostly around his identity and business matters. Finally, she reached the last question on her list, but it felt as if her throat had closed up. By convention, the final question in their magazine's interviews was always a bit more gossipy and less official. This time, the question was, "What do you look for in a partner?" Jenna stared at the words, unable to ask, but in truth, she wanted to know the answer more than anyone. In the end, she asked it. After the question hung in the air, the room fell silent for a moment. Then, Jenna saw Ethan's gaze land squarely on her. Jenna's heart clenched. His intense gaze felt like it was roasting her over a fire, making it hard to breathe. Just then, with a soft creak, the bedroom door opened. Jenna looked toward the sound and saw a beautiful, tall woman leaning sleepily against the doorframe. She was wearing Ethan's white button-down shirt. Jenna's eyes widened in shock. All the nervousness and anticipation from moments before vanished. All she could see was the blindingly white shirt on the woman. "This is Renee Frost, my girlfriend," Ethan introduced her calmly. Girlfriend, the word immediately made her think of the door code. So that was this woman's birthday. Not only did he use her birthday as his door code, but he had also brought her back to his apartment. And here she was, ridiculously asking him what he looked for in a partner. Seeing the implications of the shirt Renee was wearing, Jenna could no longer remain calm. She hastily averted her gaze. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt." She scrambled to her feet and started gathering her things from the table. "The interview is over, I should be going." She tried her best not to show how flustered she was, but she didn't dare look at Ethan or the woman in the bedroom doorway again. She hurried out, running all the way downstairs before finally stopping. Her eyes were already red-rimmed. The wind outside was biting, numbing her face, and her heart felt as if it had been plunged into an icy cavern. She walked numbly through the cold, the light gone from her eyes. This wasn't the first time Ethan had been in a relationship. Over the years, from what she had seen and heard, she knew he'd had many girlfriends. But it was common knowledge in Orlia that the second master of the Lancaster family was known for being both passionate and fickle. He had never been truly serious about any of them, let alone do something as intimate as changing his password for them or bringing them to his private apartment. He must be truly serious about Renee Frost. The more she thought about it, the more unbearable the pain became. She knew that one day he would meet someone he truly loved, that one day he would get married. But she had never imagined that, when that special person finally appeared, it would hurt this much. Her chest was so tight she could barely breathe, yet her mind was uncontrollably filled with images of him getting married and having children. She stopped abruptly. Passers-by glanced at the girl who had suddenly frozen in place, wondering what was wrong. A moment later, tears began to fall, hitting the ground and kicking up tiny specks of dust. She didn't know how long she stood there. By the time she got home, she was chilled to the bone. She locked herself in her room and didn't come out for the entire night. The next day, she went to work in a daze, unable to focus on anything. Fortunately, her editor, pleased that she had managed to interview Ethan Lancaster, didn't press her about her strange behavior and even gave her a few days off. For several days, Jenna didn't leave her house, shutting herself away as if isolating herself from the world would spare her from facing the things she didn't want to face. 3 days later, Claire called her. "Jenna, something big is happening tomorrow, and you have to be there. I'm sending you the address. Get over here, quick." She sounded so mysterious on the phone that Jenna had no choice but to pull herself together and head to the location Claire had sent. When she arrived, the park, usually bustling with tourists, was nearly empty. The lawn was covered in balloons and flower petals. She walked further in until she saw a massive wall of roses and finally stopped. On the wall of pink and white roses, a single sentence was written in red: "One's marry me, a proposal, who was proposing." Her heart trembled, and when she saw the people standing there, her pupils constricted. Beneath the flower wall, Ethan Lancaster and Renee Frost, he in a black suit, were looking at each other affectionately. Light feathers drifted down from somewhere, landing on their shoulders, creating a scene so beautiful it felt wrong to disturb. Jenna stood frozen in place, and then she watched, helpless, as Ethan slipped the diamond ring from the box onto Renee Frost's finger. Ethan was proposing to Renee. The realization shattered Jenna's heart completely. She stood rigidly, her mind going completely blank. Her entire body trembled uncontrollably, but she forced herself to keep staring at the scene before her, as if she couldn't believe it. It wasn't until Claire walked up from the side, looking at Jenna in surprise, that she spoke. "Jenna, why are you crying?" Jenna reached up to touch her cheek and found her hand covered in cold tears. Before she could explain, Claire was already grinning. "What, are you so moved that you're crying because I've finally decided to get myself married off?" Jenna froze, looking at her in shock. Yeah, I planned a surprise proposal for my boyfriend, and I even got little uncle and Renee to help me rehearse it." A wave of relief washed over Jenna. So that's what it was. She looked ahead and saw Renee taking the ring off and putting it back in the box. But even knowing it was a misunderstanding, Jenna's heart still ached. She looked at Ethan in the distance. Even if this time was fake, one day he would really propose to someone else. Jenna lowered her eyes, trying desperately to suppress the sour feeling in her chest. Soon, Claire's boyfriend, David, was called over, and everyone hid to give him a surprise. David Beckett was thoroughly startled, but in the end, he turned the tables and proposed to Claire first. Watching her friend's happiness, Jenna was happy for her, but also felt a pang of loneliness. A short while later, the group booked a private room at a restaurant to celebrate the successful proposal. Walking into the hotel, Claire linked her arm with Jenna's. "Now that I'm settled, I can finally focus on finding you a boyfriend. Look at you, not a single boyfriend all these years. Are you planning to die alone?" It wasn't that no one had pursued Jenna over the years. She had turned them all down. Claire always said she was too detached, but if she knew who Jenna was really in love with, she would probably be too shocked to speak. "Claire, no refusing. I've already invited him," Claire said, knowing what she was about to say, and pulled her into the private room. Just then, Ethan and Renee also walked in. Claire gestured with her chin toward a young man already seated in the room. "Simon, this is Jenna." Hearing the name, Jenna instinctively looked over and saw a handsome, familiar face. "Senior Wyatt?" Simon Wyatt stood up and looked at her. "Jenna, long time no see." Claire was surprised. "You two know each other?" Jenna hadn't expected it to be him. She nodded. "He was a senior at my university. We were in the same club." Claire was even more delighted and quickly pushed Jenna to sit next to Simon. Jenna sat down awkwardly as Claire chattered excitedly beside them. "What a coincidence, I told you you and Simon were meant to be." Jenna couldn't be too cold, so she just said, "Yes, it's a real coincidence." Simon, however, smiled slightly. "It's no coincidence, Jenna. How do you know I didn't come prepared?" His words made it clear to everyone that he was interested in her. Claire immediately shot Jenna a knowing look. Jenna, however, had no reaction. When no one was looking, she quietly glanced toward Ethan at the other end of the table. He wasn't paying any attention to their side at all. He was carefully peeling shrimp for Renee. The usually cool and aloof man was slow and methodical, placing the peeled shrimp one by one into Renee's bowl. His actions were incredibly gentle, and Renee's face was filled with a sweet smile. Claire followed her gaze but didn't think much of it, simply teasing, "Little uncle, I never knew you were so attentive." Ethan took off his gloves without replying and poured Renee another glass of water. A dense, sharp pain pricked at Jenna's heart. Unable to watch any longer, she looked away. Just then, several peeled shrimp appeared in her own bowl. Simon smiled faintly. "I remember you used to like these." Jenna thanked him softly and said no more. During the meal, she and Claire went to the restroom. Claire mentioned that the Lancaster matriarch was very pleased with Renee and that her little uncle's wedding was likely just around the corner. Maybe we can even have a double wedding. Claire's words echoed in Jenna's ears, haunting her long after dinner was over and she was back home, completely distracted. That night, Jenna tossed and turned, only managing to fall asleep with great difficulty. She had a dream about a grand wedding ceremony, but she wasn't the bride. It was Ethan and Renee. Renee was in a wedding gown, and Ethan, just as he had been that afternoon, devoutly placed the ring on her finger. Everyone was applauding their happiness. Only Jenna stood out, crying alone in the crowd. Later, she shouted his name, but he never once looked back at her. When she woke up, Jenna found that she really had been crying, her tears having soaked a large part of her pillow. Recalling the vivid scenes from her dream, the heart-wrenching pain felt so real. She sat on the edge of her bed in the silent darkness, unable to fall back asleep. Her secret love for Ethan, spanning more than a decade, was like a vast web she had woven for herself. Ethan had never stepped into it, but it had trapped her completely, with no way out. The next morning, Jenna dealt with her swollen eyes and the dark circles underneath them before finally returning to the magazine. She couldn't stay idle any longer. Every free moment would inevitably be filled with thoughts of Ethan. Work, at least, provided a temporary distraction. Before she knew it, the weekend arrived and Simon asked her out. Jenna could tell Simon was interested in her, but she didn't want to waste his time or lead him on. So she agreed to his invitation, planning to make things clear. They arranged to meet at an art gallery, which was hosting an exhibition by a famous artist. When Jenna arrived, Simon saw her shivering from the wind and very naturally wrapped the scarf in his hands around her neck. Jenna was just about to give it back when she unexpectedly saw two familiar figures. Ethan's dark eyes darkened when he saw the scarf around her neck. Renee, holding his arm, spoke first. "Jenna, Simon, what a coincidence." Seeing how close they were, Jenna subconsciously lowered her gaze and gave a stiff nod. It was Simon who spoke with a smile. "Mr. Lancaster, Miss Frost, I brought Jenna to see the exhibition. I didn't expect to see you here." Renee glanced at Jenna and tightened her grip on Ethan's arm. "Ethan and I are on a date." For some reason, Jenna felt that remark was directed at her. A date? So he had specifically come out on a date with Renee? It made sense. What else could bring the ever-busy Mr. Lancaster to a small art exhibition? Jenna's heart grew bitter, and she fell silent. Their outing for two quickly became an outing for four. She and Simon trailed behind Ethan and Renee, looking at the paintings without any real focus. Her attention was entirely on the couple in front of her. She tortured herself by watching their intimate and natural interactions, her heart growing colder than the wind outside. Jenna felt more and more that Ethan was drifting further and further away from her. Perhaps she was truly about to lose him for good. They continued like this for a while until Renee took a call and suddenly stopped. After hanging up, she had a clear smile on her face as she and Ethan turned to face Jenna. "We have something important to do, so we have to go now," Renee said, holding Ethan's arm, her explanation seeming either intentional or not. Seeing the smile in her eyes, Jenna's heart tensed. "What is it?" she blurted out. Renee, as if to build suspense, simply said, "It's a secret." Ethan clearly had no intention of elaborating either. Before leaving, he just looked at Jenna and gave her a serious instruction. "Don't stay out too late. Get home early." His tone was caring, yet detached and impersonal. It was like an elder giving the most ordinary advice to a junior. Jenna nodded dejectedly, watching them walk away. After that interruption, even though it was just her and Simon again, Jenna had completely forgotten what she had planned to talk to him about. She was distracted throughout the rest of the exhibition. It wasn't until they left the gallery that the cold wind on her face brought her back to her senses. Simon stood slightly in front of her, shielding her from the wind. Their plan was to go to dinner. She took out her phone to check the time, and it opened to the social media feed she hadn't closed earlier. She accidentally refreshed the page and saw that Ethan's account, which he never used, had been updated a few minutes ago with several photos. Looking at the pictures, Jenna's heart trembled violently. They were photos of Renee Frost trying on wedding dresses in that instant. She froze on the spot. Her eyes were fixed on the glaring white of the wedding dress in the photos, her hands trembling uncontrollably. The important thing they had to do was try on wedding dresses. And he had even posted the photos publicly, which was tantamount to announcing to the world that he was marrying Renee. A sharp pain pierced Jenna's heart. Unable to look any longer, she quickly turned off her phone. "What's wrong?" Simon's gentle voice came from beside her. Jenna shook her head instinctively, but when she spoke, her voice was incredibly hoarse. "Nothing." Simon clearly didn't believe her. When he looked at her face, a flicker of surprise crossed his eyes. "What happened? Are you too cold? Why are you crying?" Jenna touched her face and realized it was streaked with tears. She lowered her head in embarrassment. "I just suddenly don't feel well. Senior, let's meet up some other time." With that, she turned decisively to leave. Simon couldn't let her go back like this. "I'll take you," he said quickly, but Jenna refused flatly. "No, it's okay. I want to be alone for a bit." She walked away without giving Simon another chance to speak. Behind her, Simon watched her slender back, a complex mix of emotions swirling in his eyes. A bar. Unlike the freezing cold outside, the atmosphere inside was perpetually fiery and intense. Jenna sat at the bar, seemingly deaf to the throbbing music, downing one drink after another. She didn't want to go home. That lonely apartment would only make her think of Ethan over and over again, so she had come here instead. At least the noise and the alcohol could temporarily numb her heart. After some time, Jenna was completely drunk, slumped over the bar. A bartender came to check on her, but as soon as he lifted her up, he cried out her face was deathly pale, and her neck was covered in a dense rash of red spots. Fearing she might have a serious medical issue, the bartender quickly took her phone from her pocket and dialed the number at the top of her contacts. Ethan arrived swiftly. Seeing Jenna's drunken state, his face turned grim. He carried her out of the bar. When she briefly came to, she adamantly refused to go to the hospital. Left with no choice, Ethan took her back to his apartment. Jenna was allergic to alcohol. Drinking would cause her to break out in hives, though thankfully she had no other symptoms. Ethan called his assistant to bring over some ointment. He laid her on the sofa and began to gently apply the medicine. She was far from sober, but seeing Ethan's gentle actions, her eyes filled with a misty haze. Suddenly, she threw her arms around him. Her clear, tear-washed eyes, clouded with a drunken confusion, gazed up at him. Her consciousness was blurred. Once she vaguely recognized the person in front of her, her emotions broke free from the constraints of reason. She clung to Ethan tightly, her voice choked with sobs. "Little uncle, I love you. I really, really love you. I've loved you for so long. Why do you always treat me like a child? I'm an adult now." Though they were the words of a drunk, they sounded utterly sincere. Yet Ethan's brow furrowed. He didn't reply, continuing to calmly apply the ointment. It was as if he had an automatic barrier against her feelings. Receiving no response, Jenna grew even more upset. She clung to him like an octopus, refusing to let go, and whispered, "Can you please stop torturing me like this?" That made Ethan raise an eyebrow. When had he ever tortured her? Before he could figure it out, the little drunk in front of him suddenly tilted her head up and pressed her lips fiercely against his. She held him tightly, her kiss messy and artless. Ethan's breath hitched. He wanted to push her away, but her tear-stained kiss threw his senses into chaos. Just before he lost control, he finally found the resolve to push her away. The words of reprimand were still on his lips when the young woman collapsed into his arms, thoroughly drunk. Ethan looked down at the person in his arms, tear tracks still visible at the corners of her eyes, and let out a silent sigh. The next day, Jenna woke up to find herself in Ethan's private apartment. Seeing Ethan in the living room wearing casual clothes, she instantly remembered what had happened the night before, and her face went pale. Her memory only went as far as her saying, "I love you." Although she couldn't remember forcefully kissing him, the confession alone was enough to make Jenna's heart pound with anxiety. Just as she was about to explain, Ethan spoke first, his voice heavy. "Why were you drinking yesterday? Don't you know you're allergic to alcohol?" Jenna thought of the photos of Renee in the wedding dress and bit her lip, saying nothing. Seeing her expression, Ethan's face grew colder. "I'll treat last night as you being drunk. We should see less of each other from now on. I don't want something like this to happen again." Jenna's eyelashes fluttered. Was he talking about her confession? He would rather not see her just to avoid being liked by her. A wave of shame and sorrow washed over Jenna. She clenched her fists so tightly her nails nearly dug into her palms. She remained silent for a long time before finally forcing out the words, her voice hoarse, "Little uncle, are you really getting married?" Just as Ethan was about to speak, his phone rang. When he answered, Renee's soft voice came through. "Ethan, didn't we agree to look at wedding venues today? Are you on your way?" Wedding venues. Jenna's eyes widened in shock. She now had her answer. Her face was as white as a sheet. Before she could completely lose her composure, she grabbed her bag from the sofa and turned to leave, her fingertips white from clenching her fists. She stumbled home, the cold wind chilling her to the bone, but it was nothing compared to the ice in her heart. But when she reached her door, she saw Simon sitting in front of it, surrounded by a pile of things. There was medicine, candy, and a bouquet of flowers. Seeing her return, he shot to his feet, his eyes filled with worry. "What happened to you yesterday? Are you feeling better?" Jenna stared blankly. You waited at my door all night." Simon rubbed the back of his neck, looking a bit embarrassed. "I was worried something had happened to you." In this freezing weather, he had sat in the cold hallway for an entire night. A strange feeling stirred in Jenna's heart. She couldn't tell if it was guilt or something else. Noticing his pale face, she quickly unlocked the door and let him in. Once inside, Simon saw that Jenna didn't look well either, and something seemed to click. He asked tentatively, "Jenna, are you in love with Mr. Lancaster?" Jenna looked at him in surprise, her expression giving him the answer. "How did you know?" Simon sighed helplessly. "I could tell when we were at the art gallery. You kept staring at him, completely distracted. And I figured you leaving early had something to do with him, right?" Jenna didn't answer, her heart aching at the memory of Ethan telling her they should see less of each other. Just then, Simon spoke again. "Jenna, he already has a fiancée. There's no future for you two. If he liked you, how could he bear to let you watch him with someone else?" Jenna shook her head. "He doesn't like me." How could Ethan Lancaster possibly like her? Simon saw her dejection and continued gently. "Since you know he doesn't like you, and there's no future, why won't you let yourself go?" Yes, why won't I let myself go? Even Jenna couldn't figure it out. Perhaps it was because she had loved Ethan for so long that it had become a habit she couldn't break. But now, he was getting married. Was there really any point in holding on? Jenna didn't know. All she knew was that the feeling that once brought her joy was now causing her more and more pain. I don't know how to let go. And she certainly didn't know how to stop loving Ethan. Simon stood in front of her, and, for the first time, did something that crossed a boundary. He hugged her. Then he said slowly, "I can help you." His eyes were full of deep affection, like someone who had been lurking in the darkness for a long time and had finally seen a glimmer of light. "Jenna, you can tell, can't you? I've liked you for a long time. As long as you're willing to move on, I can be by your side." Then, as if afraid she would refuse, he added, "You don't have to accept me right away. Just let me be with you. Let's give each other a chance, okay?" Someone like Simon, who had always been a golden boy, making such a concession showed how much he truly liked her. Jenna's mind was a mess. I don't know." He took another step closer, placing his hands on her shoulders. "Don't be afraid. You don't have to do anything. Just wait for me to get closer to you to open your heart." After that day, Simon, true to his word, came to spend time with Jenna every day. In the end, she didn't refuse him. Perhaps Simon's words had truly moved her. She really did want to give her heart another chance to start over. But during this time, she dreamt of Ethan every night. The dreams were always of his wedding with Renee. They were so happy, so inseparable, while she was always just a spectator. Many times, Jenna would wake from these nightmares in the middle of the night, her face covered in tears. They say that when you dream of someone frequently, it means that person is gradually forgetting you. Ethan must be gradually forgetting her. After all, he didn't even want to see her anymore. Maybe she really should let go of the past. One night, after waking from another nightmare, unable to fall back asleep, she took out her phone. She stared for a long time at Ethan's contact, which had been pinned to the top for years, and finally chose to block him. After deleting him, she closed her eyes, and a single tear escaped. From then on, she stopped herself from thinking about him and gradually warmed up to Simon. Simon took her out to dinner, to amusement parks, to the movies. Their relationship slowly deepened, and for the first time, Jenna felt that her happiness didn't have to come from Ethan. Until one day, Claire had a fight with her fiancé, and Jenna rushed over to her house to comfort her. The two had argued over something trivial. Claire, with her fiery temper, yelled at her fiancé, let off some steam, and then started complaining to Jenna. Nothing's been going right lately. My little uncle called off his wedding, and now Grandma is cranky with everyone at home. Jenna stiffened, her face filled with astonishment. What did you say? Little uncle isn't getting married. But he even went with Renee to try on wedding dresses. How could he suddenly call it off? Claire spoke nonchalantly. It's not that surprising. Renee was the person Grandma chose for him to marry. Little uncle was just putting on a show to humor her. How could he willingly get married? Then she leaned closer to Jenna's ear, as if about to reveal a family secret. I'll tell you a secret. For years, my little uncle has been crazy about someone. He doesn't care about anyone else, but for some reason, he can't be with her. That's why he dates so frequently, to distract himself. Grandma has lectured him about it countless times. And at the family estate, there's a room that no one is allowed to enter. It's filled with that girl's things. This time, when little uncle called off the wedding, Grandma was furious. She had the room pried open and threw all the stuff at me to deal with. Now I don't know what to do with it. As Claire complained, she pushed a large cardboard box out from a corner. Jenna looked down, and her breath caught in her throat. A yellowed teddy bear, a hand-knitted black scarf, a dried flower bookmark, a simple pink hair tie. Jenna stared at the box, filled to the brim, and felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Everything inside belonged to her. She almost thought Claire was playing a cruel joke on her. How could Ethan have collected her things? He had never liked her. Her voice trembled as she asked for confirmation. Are you sure these belong to the person he loves? Claire replied, of course he treasured them so much. Whose else could they be? But Jenna still couldn't believe it. He had acted so in love with Renee before. Even the door code. Suddenly, a thought struck her. She quickly asked, do you know when Renee's birthday is? Claire thought for a moment. Sometime in the summer, I think. I can't remember the exact date. Summer. Jenna instinctively clasped her hands together. That meant 12/21 wasn't Renee's birthday at all. The shock of it all was too much. So great that Jenna didn't dare believe the truth that was right in front of her. Could it be that little uncle? Jenna shot to her feet. She had to go find him and get a clear answer right now, ignoring Claire's questions. She turned and left, running toward Ethan's private apartment. Standing before his door, her hands trembled as she typed in the 4 digits 12/21. Ethan was sitting in the living room. Seeing her burst in, he frowned. What are you doing here? Jenna looked at him with red-rimmed eyes, a storm of emotions surging within her. At this moment, she only needed to confirm one thing. Little uncle, you love me, don't you? Ethan's dark eyes narrowed. What nonsense are you talking about? He said coldly. Jenna didn't back down. She walked toward him, step by step, holding up the flower bookmark she had brought with her. Then what is this? Why did you treasure my things for so many years? And 12/21, it's not Renee's birthday at all. It's the day we met. You were commemorating me. Why did you lie to me? Ethan's gaze froze for a second when he saw the bookmark, but he quickly regained his composure, his expression growing even colder. Those things were just left at the old house, and I forgot to throw them away. As for the door code, I just typed in some random numbers. I made up a lie because I was afraid you'd get the wrong idea. What does any of that have to do with me liking you? It was always the same. He was as calm, rational, and restrained as ever, flatly denying any emotional connection between them. But this time, Jenna wasn't going to let him lead her on. Do you believe those excuses yourself? She asked, her voice choked with emotion. Little uncle, can you look me in the eye and tell me you have never, ever had feelings for me? Faced with her unprecedented and unyielding question, Ethan remained resolute. Why wouldn't I dare? Jenna Graham, does a box of old things I forgot to throw out prove that I like you? In my eyes, you're just a child. I'm a full 9 years older than you. Do you really think I could have any feelings for you other than those of an elder for a junior? His tone was utterly indifferent, causing the warmth in Jenna's heart to slowly turn to ice. She stood frozen, her eyes red, but she stubbornly held back her tears. Looking at his cold, hard face, she suddenly felt an immense exhaustion. Even now, he insisted on hiding behind that mask of indifference. He showed no consideration for her feelings, only pushing her away. "Little uncle, do you really not care at all that someone else might steal me away?" After a long moment, she took a deep breath and said slowly, "Fine. Since you won't admit it, I'll confess to you one last time. Ethan Lancaster, I love you. From the very first time I confessed, I was serious. Every time I went to your house to see Claire, it was really to see you. I worked hard in school to get closer to you. I've treasured every gift you've given me on snowy days. All these years, I have only ever loved you." By the end, her voice was trembling with unshed tears. Yet, as she stared into Ethan's deep, ink-black eyes, she saw not a flicker of hesitation. A few seconds later, he cruelly extinguished all her hopes. "Your love for me will lead to nothing. From beginning to end, I have only ever seen you as a junior, a child. I have no other feelings, let alone love. I will marry a suitable person, have children, and spend my life with them. But that person will absolutely not be you." Every word he spoke was like a knife stabbing into Jenna's heart. He left her bleeding, draining all her strength and courage. He was so certain that the other half of his life would not be her. Tears welled up in her eyes. The moment they began to fall like broken strings of pearls, she finally heard the sound of her own heart breaking. Jenna understood completely. Whether he loved her or not, he would never be with her. Her sorrow reached its peak, and yet she managed a small laugh. "I understand. I won't bother you anymore." Crying, she backed away, snapped the bookmark in her hands, and threw it into the trash can in front of him. "Ethan Lancaster, I'm done loving you. Forever." She spoke each word with finality, then turned and left without a moment's hesitation. Behind her, Ethan stared at her retreating back, his dark eyes unreadable. It was deep winter now, and the wind outside was brutally cold. But Jenna seemed oblivious to it, wandering numbly through the streets. She didn't go anywhere in particular, nor did she go home. She just walked aimlessly until nightfall. She didn't know how much time had passed. Even the shops along the street closed one by one, but she kept walking through the howling wind. The streets grew quieter until she saw a tall figure in the distance. It was Simon. Even from afar, she could see the anxiety on his face. Simon was running along the street, checking every shop that was still open, as if searching for someone. Jenna suddenly stopped. Simon continued his search, shop by shop, getting closer and closer to her, until he saw her. "Jenna," he ran toward her, like the only spark of fire in the cold, deep winter. He hugged her, her body nearly frozen stiff, and took off his own coat to wrap around her, using his body heat to warm her. "Don't run off like that again. I get really worried." After a long moment, that was all he said, his voice almost pleading. Jenna's nose tingled and tears streamed down her face unexpectedly. Simon didn't ask any questions. He just held her tightly, comforting her trembling body. "No matter what happens, I'll be by your side. Don't be sad." Perhaps his embrace was too warm. Jenna hugged him back, and after a good, long cry, she seemed to finally make a decision. Her voice was hoarse. "Simon, help me forget Ethan Lancaster." Simon knew what that meant. His arms around her tightened slowly but firmly. "Okay," he said. Time passed, and Ethan didn't see Jenna again. He was the one who had rejected her, yet whenever he thought of the finality in her eyes as she left that day, a sense of panic would creep in. He started thinking about her constantly, even burying himself in work didn't help. One weekend, while working overtime at the office, he happened to look out the window and saw that it was snowing again. It was the second snow of the year. Ethan stared at the white flakes for a long time, his mind filled with Jenna. Even when he closed his eyes, he saw her face. Finally, resigning himself to it, he took out his phone. He spent nearly 10 minutes composing a single, short sentence. "It's snowing. Is there any gift you want?" He hit send, only to be met with a red exclamation mark. Ethan's eyes narrowed. She had blocked him. That feeling of unease and panic spread through him again. Unable to bear it any longer, he buzzed his assistant. "That diamond set we won at the last auction. Have it wrapped up for me." "Yes, Mr. Lancaster," the assistant replied respectfully. Soon, he was in his car with the exquisitely wrapped gift box, speeding toward Jenna's apartment. His heart pounded in his chest the entire way, a nagging feeling that something terrible was about to happen. "No, it won't. She blocked me because she's angry. Kids have short tempers, it's understandable." He drove recklessly fast. Just as he was nearing her building, he passed an amusement park and noticed a crowd gathered there. He glanced over casually, and his eyes landed on Jenna. What is she doing here on such a cold day instead of staying home? Ethan didn't dare to think further. He immediately pulled over and got out. As he walked closer, he saw that Simon was standing next to her, the boy her age who had been pursuing her. At that moment, Simon was holding a bouquet of white roses, surrounded by onlookers. The scene instantly made Ethan think of something, and his heart leaped into his throat. He walked over with frantic steps, just in time to see Simon get down on one knee before Jenna, holding out a ring box. Ethan's heart plummeted, his hand clenching the gift box he was holding. "Jenna, will you marry me?" "Wow, marry him," the crowd erupted in cheers, happy to fuel the romance between the attractive couple. And Jenna, after a brief moment of surprise, smiled and nodded, extending her right hand. Then Ethan watched, helpless, as Simon slipped the diamond ring onto her finger. The lavish diamond jewelry set fell to the ground, scattering across the pavement. Ethan stood there, stunned. His excellent eyesight was sharp enough to see that the ring on Jenna's finger was not even a fraction of the quality of the gift he had brought. Yet she looked so happy, her eyes crinkling into a joyful smile, showing no dissatisfaction with the slightly inferior quality of the diamond. For some reason, a surge of anger rose within Ethan. For years, he had given Jenna priceless gifts, yet now she was so easily swayed by someone else's cheap display of affection. For a moment, he couldn't tell if his anger stemmed from seeing a junior being deceived, or from the terror that Jenna was about to leave him for good. While he stood there in a daze, Simon had already pulled Jenna into a tight embrace. The crowd cheered, celebrating the new couple, but in that instant, Jenna inadvertently looked up. Across the flowing traffic and through the falling snow, their eyes met. Jenna saw the crimson rage flooding Ethan's eyes. As if burned by a hot spark, she quickly looked away. "Let's go," she whispered to Simon. Simon smiled, saying considerately, "Are you shy? Jenna, I'm so happy to be with you, and even happier that you accepted my proposal. I know this is a bit public, but one day, Jenna Graham, their departure was halted by a sharp command." Ethan's chest heaved, his face frozen like ice. "Mr. Lancaster?" Simon asked, both surprised and pleased. "What a coincidence to run into you here." Ethan didn't even glance at him. His cold gaze swept over Simon before landing on Jenna's lowered eyes and the strands of hair falling across her face, and then on their clasped hands. Simon suddenly remembered that Jenna used to have a crush on this mature, distinguished man, and his sense of insecurity intensified. He instinctively tightened his grip on Jenna's hand, the one with the diamond ring, but she quietly pulled away. Jenna didn't look at him. She just lifted her head and forced a smile at Ethan. "Hello, Mr. Lancaster. Is there something I can help you with? Can I see you if there's nothing?" Ethan's brow furrowed. "Jenna Graham, why did you block me?" "It must have been a system glitch," Jenna said lightly, though she didn't dare meet Ethan's eyes. "Little uncle, if there's nothing else, I'll be going now." Ethan was almost amused by her audacity. A system glitch that specifically blocks one person? His brow knitted in displeasure, but he didn't want to argue with her on the street. "Unblock me," he said in a low, firm voice. "I'll do it when I get home." "I won't let you leave until you take me off your block list," Ethan said, resorting to a rare moment of stubbornness. "Be good." Simon felt that the atmosphere between the two was impossible to penetrate. He tried several times to interrupt Ethan, but never found an opportunity. While Jenna pursed her lips and unlocked her phone, he looked at Ethan defiantly, a slight smile on his lips. "I assume you saw me propose to Jenna just now, Mr. Lancaster." "Yes," Ethan said, casually lighting a cigarette. "How much did that ring cost?" The choice wasn't great. Simon, having just graduated, couldn't compete with Ethan's wealth. Stung by the remark, he quickly changed the subject. "Then you should also know that we'll be getting married soon. We'd be honored to have you at our wedding, Mr. Lancaster." At those words, Ethan's movements paused. The flickering ember of his cigarette illuminated the graying cast of his profile against the dimming sky, making him look like a finely carved marble statue. After a long moment, he finally looked at the silent, head-bowed Jenna. "Is what he's saying true?" "Yes," Jenna said, meeting his gaze. "Little uncle, thank you for taking care of me all these years. For the wedding, your presence will be enough. There's no need for a gift." Ethan laughed, a sound devoid of humor. When had he ever been short on money? The girl was just trying every trick in the book to provoke him, to tell him that this wedding was happening no matter what, and to invite him to witness the little sprout he had watched grow up walk into another man's arms. It made him jealous to his very core. What was so great about Simon? He was young, handsome, but that was a past Ethan could never return to. As Ethan stood there in silence, Jenna suddenly covered her nose and mouth and coughed softly. Simon discreetly shielded her behind him and said politely, "Mr. Lancaster, Jenna's lungs are a bit sensitive. She can't be around smoke. We'll be on our way." Ethan casually stubbed out the cigarette, his expression unreadable. "Shall I give you a ride?" "No, thank you," Simon said with a smile. "We'll take the subway." The two young hands clasped together again, and they walked leisurely toward the subway entrance. Ethan watched their retreating backs and couldn't help but sneer. In December, the Orlaia wind was as sharp as a knife. If he and Jenna were out together, he would have made sure she was wrapped up snugly in a warm car, with the heat on full blast, or in a mall with central air. But young people in love were different. Their hands could be warm and comfortable in their pockets, but they insisted on holding them. The subway was so far, but they wouldn't accept a ride in his car. He ground his back teeth, feeling a mix of fury and a strange desire to laugh. Love is all you need, indeed. Back home, Ethan added several more reps to his gym routine, stopping only when he was drenched in sweat. With a towel draped over his shoulders, he stood by the hot water dispenser. A cleaning lady passing by smiled. "Mr. Lancaster, you're looking more fit than ever," Ethan said, "compared to the younger guys." The words were out before he could stop them, and he felt a pang of annoyance. He was nearly 30, and here he was, getting worked up over a kid. The lady didn't understand his inner turmoil and just chuckled. "The kids on the street are too busy running around to have the time to work out every day like you, Mr. Lancaster. My grandson is 17, and all he does is lie on the sofa eating fried chicken and drinking soda." She continued with some family chatter, which Ethan listened to with half an ear, offering no comment. A text message notification sounded from his phone. It was a friend request from Jenna. Good, she listened. Decided to talk to me again? He sent it, but there was no response. Ethan knew her personality. He slowly drank his water, then set about grilling a steak and asparagus for dinner. "You're the one who said it was a system glitch." Seeing the reply, Ethan found it amusing. Jenna had always been like that. She looked like a well-behaved child, but her personality was incredibly stubborn. "Fine," his fingers flew across the screen. "I'll see if I can contact the programming department to get this bug fixed as soon as possible. So you don't get targeted and blocked again." Jenna sent a smiley face emoji and said nothing more. Ethan wasn't sure if she was playing dumb or being deliberate, but even though he was a few years older, he knew that smiley face wasn't meant kindly. He scrolled through his stickers and chose one Claire had used to beg him for a handbag. Tumbling kitten. GIF. When Jenna saw the image sent from the contact labeled Ethan Lancaster, she immediately threw her phone onto the floor. It landed on the carpet with a soft thud and rolled innocently. She ignored it. What on earth was he trying to do? She lay on her bed, holding up her hand to look at the sparkling ring on her middle finger, and sighed softly. "I know what you said today was just for Mr. Lancaster's benefit." As they were parting ways, Simon had turned to her and smiled, his handsome features crinkling slightly, looking like the moon at night. "So I won't take it seriously," he had said gently. "Jenna, I won't pressure you. I'm already so happy that you accepted my proposal. Right now, my financial situation isn't good enough to provide us with a perfect home, so for now, we're just engaged." Simon was so good to her, but when he mentioned marriage, the first person she thought of was still Ethan. It was all Ethan's fault. She buried herself under the covers, teary-eyed, wanting to block the man again. But she knew that if she did, Ethan's persistent nature would mean he'd show up at her door. Drifting off to sleep, Jenna didn't hear the buzzing of her phone from under the bed. When she woke up in the morning, she returned Claire's call. "Jenna, what were you up to last night?" Claire said boisterously. "Were you and Simon having a romantic evening?" "You didn't even answer my call?" "No," Jenna said with a sigh. "I was asleep. What's up?" "My wedding date is set," Claire said cheerfully. "Before you and Simon get married, you have to be my bridesmaid. Just the other day, you were saying your fiancé was a spineless wimp." "A misunderstanding, all a misunderstanding," Claire giggled. So, are you in or not? The bridesmaid gifts are amazing. Of course I'll be there, Jenna said, a warmth spreading in her chest. She smiled. Congratulations, Claire. Her best friend of so many years was getting married. Jenna couldn't possibly not prepare a gift. However, her salary was just enough for daily expenses, and it would be difficult to get something nice for Claire. Fortunately, many nearby shops were hiring temporary staff. Having worked various jobs since she was young, she didn't find moonlighting after her day job to be too difficult. She just didn't tell Simon. Simon's family was better off than hers. If she told him she was struggling to come up with gift money for Claire's wedding, he would definitely offer his own savings to help. Firstly, that wouldn't be appropriate. Secondly, Jenna truly cherished her friendship with Claire. Therefore, the gift and the money had to come from her. Jenna's first part-time job was as a night shift sales associate in a department store. She had done many jobs when she was financially unstable, so sales was not a problem for her. She just never expected such a coincidence. When Ethan walked into the store, she was kneeling on the carpet, trying to retrieve a button that had rolled under a sofa. Perhaps because she was hard to see, a customer in high heels accidentally stepped on her clothes. "Oh, I'm so sorry," the woman said quickly. "It's fine, my fault," Jenna said, straightening up and smiling at her. "Please feel free to look around. I'll be right with you." The customer was clearly pleased with her attitude, or perhaps felt a little guilty. She pointed to an expensive dress on a mannequin. "I'll take it. Could you wrap it up?" Jenna was taken aback. "Ma'am, your figure is perfect for this dress. I'm sure it would look even more stunning on you than on the mannequin, but are you sure you don't want to try it on first?" Her compliment made the customer cover her mouth and laugh. She waved to someone at the entrance. "Ethan, come help me decide. Do you think it will really suit me?" Ethan's expression was indifferent. "What occasion would you even have to wear something of this caliber?" he said dismissively. He trailed off as he saw Jenna, her eyes wide with surprise. "Jenna," Ethan frowned, "what are you doing here?" "Oh, you know each other?" The customer's eyes darted between them, clearly wondering how someone like Ethan would know a department store salesgirl. "Well, that settles it. I'll definitely take it. Please wrap it up." Jenna smiled at her and silently began folding the garment into a bag, her lips unconsciously pressed into a thin line. Just as Ethan had said, the clothes in this store were a level they would normally never even consider. Just like her. If it weren't for a twist of fate that made her best friends with Claire, she might never have encountered the Lancasters' social class in her entire life. But that wasn't what Ethan was thinking. He frowned at the silent Jenna and said bluntly, "Did you quit your job?" "No," Jenna said tiredly. "I just picked up a part-time job, ma'am. Your dress is ready. You can pay at the front counter." "Thank you," the customer said with a smile. "I'll go pay then. Ethan, since you've run into a friend, why don't you two chat for a bit? I'll get it." Ethan took the bag and walked off. The woman then smiled at Jenna. "Hello, what's your relationship with Ethan?" "I'm not sure if you know Claire Lancaster," Jenna said, unsure of the woman's identity and deciding to stick to the truth. "I'm Claire's best friend, so I know her uncle." "Oh, I see." Jenna wasn't sure if she had understood. As the woman sized her up, Jenna discreetly did the same. The woman was well-maintained, but you could still see the traces of age around her eyes. So, she probably wasn't Ethan's current girlfriend. Ethan was quick. He handed the bag back to the woman. "You should head home. I have something to take care of. I've called a car for you. It's waiting outside." "You rascal," the woman feigned annoyance. "I haven't even started shopping." Despite her words, she smiled and waved goodbye to Jenna before leaving. "Mr. Lancaster," Jenna said, feeling a bit awkward, "is there anything else?" "Let me guess," Ethan said, looking down at her. "You're preparing a wedding gift for Claire, aren't you?" "Yes." "Does Claire know?" "She doesn't need to," Jenna pursed her lips. "Mr. Lancaster, please don't interfere with my work." Before she could finish, Ethan leaned in, his face just a breath away from hers. As their eyes met, his voice was low and gentle, laced with a hint of exasperated anger. "Jenna Graham, working during the day and again at night. Are you planning on never sleeping? All for a gift. How can you be so foolish? What right do you have to call me foolish?" A sudden surge of anger flared up inside Jenna. She glared at him. "I can make $200 for standing here for 4 hours. Only an idiot would turn down money." "It's none of your business." Her outburst made Ethan laugh despite himself. He pulled a card from his pocket and waved it. On your 18th birthday, I told you I wanted to give you this. It has $70,000 on it. Enough for you to live on, and if it's not enough, you can always ask me for more. You're the one who refused it. Who wants your money? Jenna's eyes reddened, but she remained stubborn. Who are you to me anyway? She clearly remembered the kindness Claire and Ethan had shown her over the years, and for a moment, she couldn't maintain her tough exterior. After a pause, she asked, "Why are you still carrying this card?" The question caught Ethan off guard. That's right. It had been years since Jenna's 18th birthday, yet he always kept the card in his wallet. Sometimes he even forgot it was there, but he always carried it. His dark lashes fluttered. After a long moment, he said, "I just tossed it in there." Jenna's eyes grew redder. She sneered, Ethan obviously likes her." Jenna could feel it, but what good did knowing that do now? She had already accepted Simon's proposal, and Ethan was as tight-lipped as a clam, refusing to admit his feelings no matter what. Disheartened, she took off her work jacket, threw it on the sofa, and looked up at Ethan. "Little uncle, I remember all the kindness you've shown me. I'll find a way to pay you back. But from now on, I think it's best if we don't get too close. You're Claire's uncle, and I'm Claire's best friend. You'll have a beautiful, elegant fiancé, and Simon and I will invite you to our wedding." A heavy feeling settled in Ethan's heart. At this moment, that uncontrollable feeling became even more pronounced. Wasn't this what he wanted? Wasn't this the outcome he had been hoping for? But watching Jenna, with her red-rimmed eyes, packing her things, a dull, heavy ache spread through his chest, making his head feel hot. "Jenna, I'm here to take over your shift," a coworker said, waving. She glanced at the sales sheet and said excitedly, "Wow, you made a sale today. I'll tell the boss later so you can get your commission." "Thanks," Jenna managed a weak smile, her voice still a bit nasal. "I'll leave it to you then. I'm heading home." Ethan, who had been standing frozen, caught the coworker's curious glances. As if waking from a trance, he quickly followed Jenna, who was about to walk out of the mall. "Let go," Jenna's voice trembled. "Why are you grabbing me?" "Jenna Graham," Ethan looked down at her, his expression serious. "Are you really trying to cut ties with me?" "Yes," Jenna tilted her head back. "You have the right to get married, don't I? Let me tell you, Simon loves me very much. He's a good person." Before she could finish, Ethan, unable to hold back any longer, lowered his head and captured her lips with his. The kiss of a mature man was like a lion pouncing on its prey. She was like a trembling rabbit, caught in his mouth with red-rimmed eyes. In that moment, Jenna's mind went blank. She heard Ethan's husky voice whisper in her ear, "Open your mouth." In her daze, she thought, why doesn't he smell like smoke at all? A sharp slap echoed through the air. After hitting him, Jenna immediately covered her own lips, which were now red and swollen, and stared at him, a mixture of anger and shame on her face. Ethan was clearly stunned by the slap. It took him a moment to turn his head back, a bright red handprint visible on his cheek. "Jenna Graham," Ethan nodded slowly, "you've got guts." "You kissed me first," Jenna said, feeling a little intimidated but forcing herself to stand her ground. "You deserved it, you scoundrel." Ethan took the insult without flinching. He looked down at her. "You've kissed me before, too." "That was before," Jenna's eyes reddened. I'm with Simon now. You can't." "Jenna Graham," Ethan cupped her face in his hands, his voice low and gentle. "Don't marry him. What are you saying? I'm serious." They were only inches apart. Ethan's eyes were like deep jewels, threatening to pull her soul in. "I regret it, Jenna. I shouldn't have denied it. I love you." Jenna's heart pounded wildly. "I thought," Ethan said in a low voice, "I thought I could watch you go to another man." "Jenna, you're too young. I'm not good enough for you." In that instant, an indescribable vulnerability flickered in Ethan's eyes. Jenna listened, stunned, as he continued. "The first time I saw you, you were only as tall as my waist. You were so small, like a doll, shyly following Claire and saying, 'Hello, uncle.' I watched you grow up, watched you mature, but in my heart you were always that little girl. I don't know when it started, but I began to have thoughts I shouldn't have." He closed his eyes briefly. "I tried my best to restrain myself, but I unintentionally collected so many things related to you. It was so hard, Jenna. But then you told me you liked me." Jenna now understood completely what had been going through Ethan's mind all this time. He had treated his own feelings as a crime and her love for him as a schoolgirl crush. "So, what about now?" Jenna's voice was as light as a snowflake. "What does this mean now?" Jenna, Ethan took her hand, his voice earnest. Do you really love Simon, or are you just trying to forget me? I can't bear to lose you, and I can't bear to see you live like this. I thought letting you go to someone young and vibrant like you would be for the best, but now I see that's not true. Only I can take care of you, love you with all my heart. Jenna's fingers trembled slightly. If she had heard these words before, she would have been moved beyond measure. But now, she only felt a chill run down her spine. Ethan had dismissed her love as a child's innocent whim, yet he acted as if he had done so much for her. She couldn't accept this kind of love. She slowly pulled her hand away, letting it fall into the cold air. Her voice was hoarse. Ethan Lancaster, you're too late. Her eyes were filled with sorrow. I don't love you anymore. Being with Simon is good. Even if it means eating cheap takeout in a rented apartment every day or working as a sales associate in a department store. I'm satisfied with this life, Jenna said slowly. I don't see any problem with it. Maybe you're rich, maybe you're powerful, maybe you could give me a life free of worries, but so what? I don't care for it. Her pale figure quickly blended into the graying night. Ethan stood where he was, staring in her direction for a long time until his eyes began to ache. For the first time, he felt the urge to cry. It was already 9:30 at night when Jenna got home. Looking weary, she climbed the stairs one by one. Before the voice-activated lights could turn on, she saw a dark figure sitting at her doorstep. She jumped in fright. A man's low, hoarse voice said, "It's me." "Simon," Jenna hurried over. "What are you doing here?" "Oh my God, it's so cold out." She touched Simon's cheek. It was ice cold. She quickly unlocked the door and pushed him inside. The 24-hour heating in her apartment began to warm Simon up. He held a cup of hot water, his face still a bit pale. "Where were you? I called you so many times, but you didn't answer." Jenna paused, then took out her phone, only to find that it had shut down from the cold. She sighed. "It was just too cold outside." "I see," Simon nodded. "So, where did you go so late?" Jenna thought of the lips Ethan had pressed against hers, and her face burned with a blush. A wave of guilt washed over her. But she didn't want to tell Simon she was working a second job, so she said, "A friend asked me out." Simon said nothing more. Jenna sighed softly and sat down next to him. "Don't wait for me at my door like this again," she said gently. "What if you get sick?" "It's fine, I'm strong." Simon's body had warmed up. He took the initiative to kiss Jenna's cheek and smiled. "Have you had dinner? I can cook for you. You go take a shower." "Okay." When she came out of the bathroom, the aroma of cooking filled the air. Simon came out with the dishes and untied his apron. "Come and eat." After dinner, it was Jenna's turn to wash the dishes. When Simon hugged her from behind, she couldn't help but stiffen. The man's presence was invasive, and she instinctively shrank away, avoiding his intimate kiss. "The plate is going to break," she said softly. "Don't worry about it," Simon said, his arms wrapped around her back, his voice hoarse. "Jenna, turn around. Don't do this." Jenna's mind was in turmoil, alarm bells ringing. This was an enclosed space. She pleaded in a panic. "Simon?" Simon's movements paused and his hands loosened. Jenna let out a sigh of relief, her tense shoulders relaxing. She turned to look at him. Simon forced a smile. "I won't force you." She washed her hands and turned back, giving him a comforting kiss on the corner of his lips. "Let's wait until we're married, okay? I don't want to rush." "I can't win with you." Simon pinched her nose gently. "Okay, I'll wait." Their hands, both wearing matching rings, intertwined. The diamonds reflected the kitchen light. An uneasy feeling settled in Jenna's heart, and she looked away, flustered. She didn't see the dark look on Simon's face. Simon insisted on leaving, and Jenna didn't stop him. As the sky outside grew darker, she tried to make small talk. "Are you going to Claire's wedding? I'm going to be her bridesmaid." "When is it?" Simon's movement stopped. He said seriously, "Jenna, can you not go?" Jenna was taken aback. "Why?" "Bridesmaids often get harassed, Jenna," Simon said with a frown. "You're so beautiful. What if one of the groomsmen takes a liking to you and gets handsy?" "Then you can protect me," Jenna said, finding it a bit amusing. "Don't worry, I've seen situations like that, but it won't happen at Claire's wedding. They all know their limits." "No," Simon said seriously. "Go talk to Claire, or I will." "All right." Although she knew Claire would never put her in such a position, Jenna reluctantly agreed to appease Simon. She sent Claire a message. "Claire, Simon's worried the groomsmen might cause trouble and harass the bridesmaids." Claire replied instantly. Impossible, absolutely not, Jenna. Don't worry. The groomsmen are all handpicked by my fiancé, 2 college friends, and his cousin. If any of them dare to cause trouble, I'll beat them to a pulp. Jenna could feel Claire's determination through the screen and couldn't help but smile. What if there really is a creep at the wedding? Haha, Simon won't even need to step in. I'll call the police myself. It was obvious that a wedding of Claire's caliber wouldn't have any crass antics, but Simon was just concerned for her. Jenna chatted with Claire a bit longer, then took some screenshots of their conversation and sent them to Simon. Feel better now? It wasn't until she was about to fall asleep that Simon replied with a simple, "Fine." Jenna had a feeling Simon was still angry, but she didn't know what else to say. She tucked herself into bed and went to sleep. She worked 2 jobs for a month straight and managed to save up the gift money just before Claire's wedding. For the gift, she bought a necklace that Claire had been eyeing for a long time but had always hesitated to buy. Jenna had once asked her why she didn't just get it. Claire had replied, "It's not worth the price, and I already have enough necklaces to fill 3 necks." So she did like it. Jenna had secretly noted it down. She winced as she watched half of her savings disappear from her bank account in an instant. Claire was her best friend from childhood to now. She had been Jenna's pillar of support so many times, so Jenna didn't feel her own contribution was a big deal. But Claire was moved to tears, sobbing openly. "Jenna," she cried, "you're too good to me." Sob. "Even my dad wouldn't buy me this necklace." "That's because you buy too much," Jenna said with a laugh. "If you only bought this one necklace a month, your dad would definitely get it for you." "It's not the same, even my uncle wouldn't buy it for me, but you did." She hugged Jenna tightly, sobbing. "You must have saved for a long time. Jenna, you're such a fool, let me just give you the money for it, okay?" Jenna couldn't help but laugh. Claire's fiancé chimed in weakly from the side. "Since Miss Graham gave it to you, you should accept it graciously. When Miss Graham gets married, you can return the favor." "Who asked you?" Claire huffed playfully, wiping her tears. She took Jenna's hand and said, "From now on, I'll do anything for you anytime." "Jenna, you're the best. You've always been like that," Jenna said, stroking her cheek. "All right now, the rehearsal is tomorrow. You don't want to have swollen eyes." Claire's wedding was scheduled for around New Year's Day, so Jenna took an extra day off to help her with the rehearsal. Although the bridesmaids didn't have to perform or do much else, a wedding involves countless small details. Jenna woke up early 2 days in a row. Looking at the radiant Claire, she couldn't help but remark, "You're amazing." "What?" Claire didn't hear her, busy twirling in her dress. "How does it look? This is the morning robe. The main gown is too big, I'm too lazy to put it on now." "Beautiful," Jenna smiled. "You look beautiful in anything." The bridesmaids had their own dresses too. When Jenna changed into hers, she felt a bit self-conscious, her hand hovering over her chest for a long time. Claire's eyes lit up. "Jenna, you should go for a sexy style from now on. You look gorgeous." "Be ridiculous," Jenna said, exasperated. "I'm not used to wearing this." "Come on, a friend in need is a friend indeed," Claire said, cupping Jenna's face and puckering her lips dramatically. "Kiss me, kiss me." The makeup artist did a simple look for Jenna. Looking at herself in the mirror, she was a bit stunned. In her 20-odd years, Jenna had never tried this style of clothing. Seeing herself now, she almost didn't recognize herself. Claire, who was getting her makeup done, glanced at her phone and said, "Jenna, could you go get my little uncle for me? He's at the entrance." "Little uncle," Jenna paused. "Why is he here for the rehearsal?" "Oh, did I not tell you?" Claire smacked her forehead, making the makeup artist yelp. "Little uncle is the efficient, so rehearsal and the actual wedding." She would have to see Ethan Lancaster several times. Jenna's back went rigid. Like a ghost, she stood up and walked towards the door. Claire called her name several times from behind, but she didn't seem to hear. "Jenna, grab a coat, it's cold outside." The makeup artist saw Jenna leave in a daze and said with a smile, "Shall I take one to Miss Graham?" "It's fine," Claire thought for a moment. "Little uncle will take care of her. It's fine." Only when she was outside did Jenna realize how cold it was. The main hall was heated, but the entrance was not. Her bare shoulders quickly turned red, and she shivered as she looked for Ethan. Soon, a large black coat was draped over her. The man's eyes were a little gloomy. "You're not that bright to begin with. What if you freeze?" "Little uncle," Jenna said meekly. "Let's go in. Claire is waiting for you." Ethan was carrying a gift bag containing his speech. He put one arm around Jenna's shoulders and led her inside with an undeniable force. He only let go once they were indoors, his expression softening. "Today," Ethan looked at her and said softly, "you look very beautiful." For some reason, Jenna's hand, which was about to take off the coat, paused. Instead, she pulled it tighter around her chest. As she lowered her head, Ethan could clearly see the tips of her ears turning red. He smiled but didn't tease her further. They walked to the dressing room just as Claire was finishing up part of her makeup. She jumped up and threw her arms around him. "Little uncle," she said, her big eyes sparkling. "What did you bring me?" "Happy wedding," Ethan smiled, taking a very delicate box from the gift bag. "Something you like." The moment Jenna saw the brand logo, she had a bad feeling. Claire also let out a curious hem as she opened the box, only to find a necklace identical to the one Jenna had given her. Sensing the awkward atmosphere, Ethan hesitated. "You don't like it?" "Wow," Claire took the other box from her drawer and placed them side by side. "Little uncle, you and Jenna have such good taste. You got me the exact same thing." Jenna felt a bit awkward. "It's okay, Claire. I can get you something else." "What's the big deal?" Claire's eyes widened. "If anyone's changing, it should be uncle. First come, first served. I'm wearing the one Jenna gave me for the wedding tomorrow. How about," she turned to Ethan for his opinion. "Uncle, can I give this one to Jenna? You can get me something else. I want Jenna to wear the same one as me. Look, her neck is so bare." This was clearly against etiquette. Jenna quickly waved her hands. No, that's fine," Ethan said, "but I haven't seen Jenna's dress yet." Only then did Claire notice that Jenna was still wearing Ethan's coat. The room was warm and Jenna's face was flushed. Claire gave her a teasing look. "Aren't you going to take it off? Can't bear to part with my little uncle's scent?" Like a startled bird, Jenna immediately took off the coat and handed it to Claire. Her dress wasn't overly sexy, but compared to her usual conservative style, it had a touch of mature charm. The off-the-shoulder design revealed her beautifully lined shoulders and neck. From Ethan's perspective, the skin where her spine met her neck was so fair it seemed to glow, like a swan with its head bowed. As Jenna was still feeling flustered, a pair of hands suddenly reached around her neck. The man's arms circled her neck in an embrace-like motion, followed by a cool sensation. Before she could step back, she heard Ethan's husky voice say, "It's on." Jenna instinctively looked in the mirror. The sparkling diamonds shone brilliantly, making her skin look radiant. Claire's eyes were red with envy. "So beautiful tomorrow, Jenna will wear the same one as me. Is that really appropriate?" "Miss Graham, don't you worry," the makeup artist said with a smile. "Tomorrow, Miss Lancaster will naturally be the most dazzling person there. She'll be wearing 3 necklaces, not to mention the main gown, headpiece, and wedding dress. No one will think you're trying to steal her thunder, and if they do, then they're just trying to stir up trouble," Claire said firmly. "It's my wedding, so of course I'm the most beautiful. When Jenna gets married, she'll be the most beautiful." Jenna relaxed a little and nodded with a smile. But out of the corner of her eye, she saw Ethan standing silently, holding his coat. The makeup artist continued with Claire's look. Jenna walked over and sat down, whispering, "Little uncle, what are you doing?" "I was just thinking," Ethan said politely, "how long a piece of clothing can retain a scent without being washed." Jenna looked at him, confused. "You only wore it for a moment, yet it smells so good," he chuckled. "Jenna Graham, are you some kind of fragrant princess?" Jenna's face immediately turned red. She lowered her voice and said through gritted teeth, "Little uncle, this is Claire's wedding. Don't be so." "Shameless," Ethan nodded. "I'm a scoundrel. Can't help it." The next day's wedding went off without a hitch. Just as Claire had said, no one thought Jenna was upstaging the bride after all. Everyone was dressed to the nines. Simon also attended in a suit, but his expression changed slightly when he saw Jenna's attire. "Isn't that a bit too revealing?" he asked hesitantly. "I sent you a picture yesterday, didn't I?" Jenna smiled. "It's fine. The ceremony isn't long. I'll change right after. Wear my jacket for now." The suit jacket, still warm from her boyfriend, was draped over her shoulders, and a warmth spread through Jenna's heart. It wasn't cold inside the venue, and Simon, dressed only in a white shirt, looked dashing and elegant. His eyes held a hint of worry as he kissed her lips. "You're too beautiful. I'm worried someone will steal you away." Simon's gaze went past Jenna's shoulder to Ethan, who stood behind her in a tuxedo, holding a large coat. A shadow of defiant provocation crossed Simon's eyes. They won't, Jenna laughed. You're very handsome too, boyfriend. Simon adjusted her jacket. Go on, he said dotingly. Give me the jacket when you have to go on stage. Jenna nodded and left with a smile. Claire was backstage, adjusting her main gown. She was so stunningly beautiful today that everyone couldn't help but stare. Jenna showered her with compliments, making Claire blush. I wish my husband was as good with words as you are, she sighed. How did I end up marrying such a sawbones? You're already calling him husband. Sounds like you love him a lot, Jenna teased. Stop complaining, you look gorgeous. HMPH, he cried when I tried on the main gown, Claire said proudly, and that was before hair and makeup. Everything that followed was like a dream. The Lancaster family had hired the best wedding designer in Orlia to marry off their precious daughter. Although Claire's marriage was also a business alliance, she had found true happiness in it. Standing under the glittering lights, Jenna watched her longtime friends back and felt her nose tingle. Halfway through the wedding, Jenna's duties were complete. Just then, Ethan went on stage to give a speech for Claire's wedding. His features were deep-set, his nose high and straight, and his lips thin and sharp, giving him a somewhat aloof and stern appearance. But Jenna knew that Ethan wasn't as harsh as people said. In fact, he was quite soft-hearted. Someone gently embraced her from behind. Startled, Jenna turned to see Simon's slightly displeased expression. What's wrong? She whispered. My girlfriend is staring at another man, Simon said jealously. I'm not happy about it, but Jenna saw the man on stage, bathed in the spotlight, glance in their direction. Logically, from the stage, you couldn't see the audience clearly. Jenna knew this, but her heart still skipped a beat. She embarrassedly pulled away from Simon's embrace. All right, I'll make it up to you when we get home. She didn't notice the coldness that crept into Simon's expression, a mix of anger and understanding. He let out a low, cold laugh. Fine. But for the rest of the wedding, Jenna didn't see Simon again. By the time Jenna realized Simon was gone, Claire had already started making the rounds for toasts. As a bridesmaid, Jenna had to accompany her, so she could only discreetly try to call Simon. Claire took a moment to look at her worried friend. What's wrong? Where's Simon? I think he left, Jenna said, biting her lip, a pang of sadness in her heart. He said he wanted to get some air in the corridor. I gave him my jacket, and then he was gone. I can't reach him on the phone either. Don't worry about it. He probably had an emergency, Claire said casually. Don't keep a man on too tight a leash. Let him have some freedom. All right. Jenna's tolerance for alcohol was average, but after downing several different kinds of drinks in a daze, her face was flushed. Seeing Claire handling it all with ease, she said, I'm going to step outside for some fresh air. You take it easy, okay? I will. Put on a jacket before you go. It was so warm inside that Jenna had the mistaken impression it wasn't cold outside. She walked to the entrance in her thin, formal dress and was immediately hit by a blast of cold wind, making her sneeze. Someone draped a thick coat over her from behind and said in a low voice, Finally got to use this. The alpaca wool coat was long, reaching her calves. Jenna's alcohol-hazed eyes lit up with surprise. She instinctively turned around. Simon, you... But the face that met hers was one of displeasure. Hey, little uncle, she said, her head spinning. Why is it you? Who did you expect? Ethan's brow was furrowed. Jenna Graham, are you drunk? Take a good look at who I am. It's little uncle, she wrinkled her nose. The cold air only made her dizzier. She stumbled and fell into Ethan's arms. Hey, little uncle, take me inside. You just came out, Ethan said coolly, but one arm wrapped around her waist, holding her securely. Be careful, there's less wind over here. He led her in that position to a turn in the corridor where there were fewer people and less wind. Jenna huddled in the large coat, her frail shoulders trembling slightly. She looked up at Ethan, trying to focus. What are you doing here? She was completely drunk. Ethan sighed in resignation. I'm here for the wedding. Whose wedding? Jenna's eyes widened. She looked down at her own dress, then at Ethan's tuxedo, and let out a surprised wow. It's not ours, is it? A warmth spread through Ethan's heart. He knew that the current Jenna was not in her right mind, mistaking her dress for a wedding gown, but he was still captivated by the fantasy. After seeing his little niece, who used to follow him around with a runny nose, get married, the thought of marrying Jenna himself had become more and more insistent. Never before had Ethan been more certain of his love for her. a love so deep that he was willing to cast aside the career, savings, and achievements he had built over 30 years, or give them all to her, his only fear being that she wouldn't want them. His hand tightened around Jenna's waist. From behind, her figure was completely hidden by his tall, sturdy frame. Anyone could see it was a dangerous signal. Only Jenna still looked at him with her beautiful, innocent eyes, like a rabbit about to be caught, pleading with its hunter for mercy. "Little uncle, we're married." "Jenna Graham," Ethan said in a soft, coaxing tone, "why do you want to marry little uncle?" He wanted to hear words like or love, but Jenna's lips turned down in a pout. "Little uncle is a scoundrel," she said pitifully. "He bit my lip and it hurt. Little uncle has to take responsibility." "You've got to be kidding me," Ethan chuckled, exasperated. He pinched her chin with one hand, his voice husky. "Jenna Graham, you asked for this." He kissed the lips that the makeup artist had so carefully defined, making them look even fuller. The sweet taste of her lip gloss mingled between them, driving Ethan wild. The intense suction on her lower lip made Jenna unconsciously part her mouth, and someone immediately took advantage, pressing their tongue against her teeth. The kiss made her shrink back, her cheeks flushed, her eyes misty. She managed to mumble a few words. "No, don't." She vaguely knew that the person kissing her wasn't Simon. Simon's kisses weren't like this. He was a gentleman, polite and gentle. He would ask her to close her eyes before their lips met, and the touch would be soft and warm just like him. But Ethan's kiss was heavy, painful. She whimpered, telling him to go away. Ethan pulled back slightly, his fingers pressing against her lower lip. "Jenna Graham," he said hoarsely, "who is kissing you?" It's Ethan Lancaster." A tear rolled down Jenna's cheek. "You bastard." Ethan knew full well he was a bastard. Whether Jenna had a boyfriend or a fiancé didn't matter to him. He had cast aside any semblance of pride or morality when he started his business as a young man. Even if Jenna did marry Simon, he would still take her from that man, as long as Jenna loved him. He tenderly licked away her tear, his forehead resting against hers. "Does it hurt?" he asked gently. "Why are you crying?" Jenna covered her mouth, refusing to let him kiss her again. "Little uncle doesn't even like me, but he still kisses me," she said, her voice full of grievance. "Little uncle doesn't like you, but Ethan Lancaster does. Ethan Lancaster loves you," he whispered. "He'll give you all the best of himself. My dearest Jenna, do you want that?" Jenna looked at him, dazed. After a moment, she sniffled and said, "I'm cold." She was drunk. Talking to her now was like talking to a wall. Ethan chuckled, then swept her up into his arms, wrapping her tightly in his coat. "Then let's go somewhere warmer." When Claire called, the sky was already dimming. Her voice was slurred. "Little uncle, have you seen Jenna? I can't reach her and I can't reach Simon either." "She's with me." Ethan's fingers gently caressed Jenna's sleeping face. "She's drunk. Are you done with everything?" "Almost. We're planning to fly out for our honeymoon tomorrow," Claire giggled. "Take good care of Jenna. When she wakes up tomorrow morning, have her call me back." "Okay." After hanging up, Ethan felt the body in his arms tremble slightly and couldn't help but laugh. "Jenna, are you an ostrich? How long are you going to pretend to be asleep?" "Ethan Lancaster." Jenna shot up from the bed and threw a pillow at him. "You bastard." A nap in the afternoon had sobered her up completely. Recalling the events that had transpired while she was drunk, Jenna wished she could suffocate Ethan with the fluffy down pillow from the hotel. Ethan, however, didn't fight back. He just watched her with a smile and reminded her, "Your collar." Jenna froze and quickly looked down. Her dress had slipped after all the commotion, and she was on the verge of being exposed. Ethan chivalrously turned his head away. Jenna, both angry and embarrassed, retorted, "Stop pretending. You weren't like this when you were kissing me." "True," Ethan agreed. "You got a lot of calls while you were sleeping. I didn't answer." Forgetting about punishing Ethan for a moment, Jenna straightened her dress and quickly checked her phone. It was filled with missed calls and texts from Simon, with a few from Claire mixed in. She called Simon back, but there was no answer. Claire, on the other hand, picked up immediately. Her alcohol tolerance was much better than Jenna's, and she was clear-headed enough to be sitting by a ledger, tallying up gift money. She waved at Jenna with a grin. "Jenna, where are you resting?" "Probably upstairs in the hotel," Jenna said. "Did Simon call you?" "I think so," Claire said, scrolling through her chat history. "But I was drinking then. He asked where you were, and I told him you were drunk and little uncle was taking care of you." A heavy feeling settled in Jenna's stomach. Simon had always known that Jenna used to have feelings for Ethan, and now their relationship was undeniably complicated. Overwhelming guilt washed over her. Jenna quickly got out of bed, intending to go to Simon's place to find him. But Claire stopped her. "What's that on your neck?" Jenna froze and looked at her reflection on the screen. A distinct red mark was visible on her neck. Ethan smoothly took the phone from her. "Have someone send a change of clothes for Jenna," he told Claire. Sure, Claire's attention was diverted and she didn't press the issue. "Little uncle, you can take Jenna home later." "Okay." After the call ended, Jenna was furious. She pointed at her neck. "What is this? A mosquito bite," Ethan said, lying without batting an eye. Someone knocked on the door. He added casually, "You didn't think it was a hickey, did you?" Mosquitoes in Oralaya in the dead of winter, when temperatures were well below freezing. Jenna gritted her teeth but had no choice but to take the clothes. "I never want to be alone with you again." "Not an option," Ethan said. "I don't like my life being broadcasted." It took Jenna a moment to realize what he meant. He was determined to be with her. Unable to argue with him, she kicked Ethan out of the room, changed her clothes, and came out with her cheeks flushed with anger. "I don't need you to take me. I'll get a cab myself." "It'll take at least half an hour to get a ride at this time," Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Where are you going? I'll drive you." Jenna deliberately said, "Royal Gardens." "To my boyfriend's place." Ethan ground his teeth but nodded. "Fine." Jenna got into his car, habitually taking the passenger seat. She suddenly remembered something and looked at Ethan. "Why isn't there a lighter in your car anymore?" "Because I quit smoking." "Oh, just like that?" Jenna said. "Why?" "But quitting is a good thing." "Because you don't like it," Ethan said, smiling at her. "Whatever you don't like, I'll change." By the time the car reached the entrance of the residential complex, the heat on Jenna's face had yet to subside. She stared silently at the lights flickering on in the dark night and suddenly said, "Ethan Lancaster." "Yes, we should stop this," Jenna said, clutching the seatbelt, her eyes lowered. "I have a boyfriend. You'll have an arranged marriage partner someday, just like Claire, and a family that matches your status. Liking someone is a matter of fate. You'll come to like your arranged partner, not me." A sharp pang went through Ethan's heart. He rubbed his temples. "Jenna, you're not me. I know I've let you down in the past. If you don't want to accept my confession and be with me, or if you want to be difficult, that's fine. It's my fault, but you can't treat my love like some casual joke." He turned to look at her, a pained expression on his face. "If this is my punishment for how I treated you before, I can accept it, but I don't want you to treat this as a joke. Jenna, I'm serious about loving you, and I've loved you for longer than you've loved me." Jenna didn't meet his eyes, just slowly whispered a sorry. "I'm the one who should be sorry," Ethan said. "Jenna, I'm sorry." She got out of the car and walked towards the complex. The security guard recognized her and let her pass without issue. After a brief chat in the snowy night, Jenna's figure disappeared into the darkness. Ethan sat silently in the car. The heat was on full blast, but his heart felt as cold as ice. Jenna called Simon dozens of times, but he didn't answer. She continued to dial as she went up in the elevator, patiently waiting for the busy tone to end. She was standing at his door when the call finally connected. "Simon, are you home? Why are you even calling?" Simon sneered. "Weren't you having a great time at the wedding?" Jenna was taken aback but could tell from his slurred speech that he had been drinking. "No, I wasn't," she said softly. "I was thinking about you. Have you been drinking?" "Haha, I'm not drunk," Simon said, followed by a gulping sound. He raised his voice. "Jenna Graham, tell me the truth. Are you leaving me because I'm poor?" "No, of course not." Jenna could hear him moving around inside. She tried to soothe him. "All right, I know you're home. I'm coming in." She knew his passcode and pushed the door open, immediately hit by the smell of alcohol. Simon was sitting on the sofa. He threw the last beer bottle to the floor, where it shattered with a loud crash. "Jenna," he said in a low voice, "come here." Jenna carefully navigated around the broken glass and went to his side. Simon wrapped his arms around her waist. "Jenna," he mumbled, "your friends are so rich. Ethan Lancaster is so rich after seeing them. Will you really not think I'm poor?" Jenna was stunned. In reality, Simon's family was much better off than hers. Anyone who could afford a house in Oralaya had some financial backing. She stroked his hair. "No, of course not." "Then why don't you love me?" He looked up at her. You won't give me a key to your place, you won't sleep with me. Jenna, will you have my baby? His arms were locked around her, his grip frighteningly strong. Jenna's back went rigid. Simon, you're drunk? Jenna, Simon murmured, don't say no. He stood up, his hot breath on her neck as he kissed her face and ears messily. His hands pinned her wrists, leaving no room for her to resist. The stench of alcohol made Jenna's head ache. She turned her face away to avoid his kisses. Simon, are you really going to force me? Simon's movements paused, but then his eyes landed on the bright red mark on the side of her neck. Even in his drunken state, Simon knew it wasn't from him. The phone pressed against her body was vibrating. A surge of rage filled him. He sneered, grabbing her face, his voice a desperate, hoarse whisper. You won't sleep with me, but you'll sleep with someone else. You gold digger, you shameless bitch. Jenna couldn't believe those words were coming from Simon. Her eyes widened as she looked at his drunken face. Simon, are you crazy? Stop this drunken nonsense and let me go. Her struggles were useless. Simon pushed her down onto the sofa, like a starving beast, fumbling with the buttons on her clothes. Get off, stop it, Simon. Let me go. Jenna kicked his knee, but he didn't even flinch, tearing at her collar. Jenna, just give in, he said, his voice frantic. Then we'll be a family. I'll marry you, okay? Jenna felt sick. She didn't want to have sex with Simon under these circumstances, and she despised being forced to do anything. She tried to calm herself down. Let me just reply to a message, and I'll agree Claire told me to let her know I'm safe. If I don't reply, she'll call the police. So what if she calls the police? Simon laughed. I'm your boyfriend, Jenna. Despite his words, he shifted slightly, giving her enough space to grab her phone. Not even looking to see who was calling, she quickly silenced it, called back, and tossed the phone onto the sofa. Simon, her voice trembled, are you sure you want to do this, even if it means I'll hate you? Jenna, you won't. Once you have my baby, we'll have a wonderful little family. His actions grew more reckless. Unwilling to pin her hopes on a phone call that might get disconnected, Jenna let Simon kiss her neck while her fingers searched for the beer bottle on the floor. Simon, she took a deep breath, gripped the bottle, and smashed it against the back of his head. Get off. After a loud thud, Simon's movement stopped. Jenna, pinned beneath him, felt something warm on her face. It was blood. He had passed out. Jenna shoved him off her, tears streaming down her face. Suddenly, there was a violent pounding on the apartment door. Startled, she looked at Simon's limp form on the floor. He's still breathing. The pounding grew louder. The feeling of having narrowly escaped danger made Jenna break down completely. She realized her hands were shaking, and her breathing was rapid and shallow. Simon, a furious roar came from outside. Open the door. The roar was like an ultimatum. Before Jenna could get to the door, the person outside, clearly at their wits' end, started kicking the security door with full force. She trembled and shouted, "Stop kicking, I'm opening it." The noise immediately stopped. In her panic, Jenna didn't even see who was outside before she was pulled into a tight, strong embrace. The man was still panting, clearly having run all the way. You scared me to death, Ethan said, pulling her out of the hug to look at her. He brushed her messy hair aside and clumsily wiped the tears from her face. My dear, you scared me to death. The call had gone to Ethan. The world was spinning. Jenna's legs felt weak, but thankfully Ethan was holding her. She grabbed his hand and sobbed, Call 911. What's wrong? What happened? Ethan panicked, frantically checking her for injuries. Are you hurt? I knocked Simon out, Jenna cried. He's bleeding a lot. Ethan let out a sigh of relief. He held her tighter, stroking her back. It's okay. I've already called for an ambulance and the police. Jenna, don't be afraid. Will the police arrest me? A wave of fear washed over Jenna. She wanted to turn and check on Simon, but Ethan held her fast, then lifted her into his arms. Someone will handle this. I recorded the phone call, he said, kissing her clammy forehead. My poor baby, you were so scared. Only then did Jenna finally relax. Tears streamed down her face as she buried her head in Ethan's chest. Why would Simon do this to me? She said, her voice full of grievance. Why? I didn't want to do that. This is attempted rape, Ethan said, his voice tight with suppressed rage. He held Jenna close, kissing her lovingly. It's okay now. No one will ever be able to bully you again. The police cars soon arrived at the complex. The security guard, seeing the commotion, immediately opened the gate. Jenna sat in the warm car, watching Ethan outside talking to several police officers. His face was still etched with anger, giving him a particularly fierce look. "Could we ask Miss Graham to come out and give a statement?" "No," Ethan refused flatly, an unlit cigarette dangling from his lips. "I've given you the evidence, you handle it. Mr. Lancaster, we understand how you feel, but even if she has to give a statement, it will have to wait until she's in a better state," Ethan said, sighing wearily. "Thank you for your hard work." "Of course, Mr. Lancaster. We'll come back tomorrow afternoon then." The ambulance took the unconscious Simon away. As Ethan opened the car door, Jenna whispered, "You can smoke if you want." "I'm not smoking," Ethan said. "I quit." Jenna had slowly calmed down, though tear tracks still stained her face. Ethan glanced at her, then took a wet wipe from the side compartment and handed it to her. "Wipe your face," Ethan said. "It's over, Jenna. They might need you to give a statement tomorrow." "Okay." A silence fell over the car. Jenna spoke softly. "How did you get here so fast?" "Because I knew you wouldn't spend the night at Simon's place," Ethan said, looking at her. "I was waiting to take you home." Upon hearing the news, Claire immediately canceled her honeymoon trip. As soon as she hung up the phone, she drove to Ethan's house and hugged Jenna, crying, "I'm so glad you're okay. What could have happened?" Jenna patted her back comfortingly. "All right, don't cry." "What is wrong with that Simon? Wasn't he a decent guy before?" Claire complained. "He should be thrown in jail, locked up for a good few years, Jenna. It's all my fault. If I hadn't introduced you to him." "Don't be silly," Jenna said, making a few shushing sounds. "Actually, I'm confused too. Simon was always a good person, although he had expressed a few times that he wanted to. He never forced me." "Liquid courage," Ethan said calmly. "Don't worry, the police will teach him what it means to be sober." "Where is he now?" "In the hospital." "Jenna," Claire said with a serious expression, "you have to break up with him, you hear me? Getting involved with someone like that will only end badly. If he dared to force you to do this today, he's capable of doing something even more extreme tomorrow." "I agree," Ethan nodded. "And he's definitely going to jail this time, which means he'll have a criminal record." "Jenna Graham, you can't be with him anymore." Jenna sighed. "Do you guys really think I'm that much of a love-struck fool? I'm just confused as to why Simon changed so drastically." Soon, Claire's husband called. He had been woken up by his wife's screams in the middle of the night and had been busy investigating all day. He sounded exhausted. "I found it. In the last few months, Simon's account received a few $1,000,000, which were then transferred out shortly after. I checked, and it looks like it was from a loan shark." Jenna was speechless, but thinking back, it all started to make sense. "Simon kept telling me he wanted us to be a family, for me to have his baby. He just wanted to tie you down with a child," Claire reacted quickly. "What a jerk, he's in deep trouble and wants to drag you down with him. Forget sleeping with him, even with a child, so what? Jenna has us, why would she stay with him?" Jenna was still in shock. The Simon she knew was a good person who didn't smoke, drink, gamble, or visit prostitutes, but the loan shark debt was undeniable. Seeing her worried expression, Ethan ruffled her hair. "I'll get to the bottom of this. Don't be afraid. Since Claire is here, she can stay with you tonight." "Okay," Claire nodded, ignoring her husband's protests on the other end of the line. "It's been a while since Jenna and I had a sleepover at Little Uncle's house." "I'll go get ready for bed then," Jenna said. She was still wearing the clothes she had come in, though her jacket was Ethan's, as hers was stained with Simon's blood. She pursed her lips and looked at Ethan. "Thank you so much for tonight." "You're thanking me," Ethan said, dissatisfied. "Try again." "Ethan Lancaster," Jenna stood on her tiptoes and whispered quickly in his ear, "You're the best." She scurried off to the bathroom, leaving Ethan reaching for empty air. He looked at his empty palm, a strange, ticklish feeling spreading through his heart. Simon woke up. Jenna wanted to go see him and demand an explanation, but Ethan stopped her. Hearing that Simon was in an unstable condition, she hesitated and eventually gave up the idea. She trusted Ethan to handle the situation. By the time the final verdict was announced, Claire was already enjoying her honeymoon in a warm summer on the other side of the world. She was still not satisfied when she learned Simon had been sentenced to a year in prison. "That's too short." "It was only an attempted crime," Jenna said with a sigh. "Ethan told me he's been gambling online for a long time. He's selling his house to pay off his debts. You're not feeling sorry for him, are you?" "No," Jenna said. "He should serve the year. At least when he gets out, he'll have kicked the gambling habit." Claire was satisfied. Good, I'm glad Jenna isn't a love-struck fool. If you had signed a letter of forgiveness, I would have been furious. Jenna paused. What? The letter of forgiveness never even reached me. In fact, apart from giving a statement at Ethan's house that day, Jenna had not been involved in the case at all. Ethan had handled everything, acting more like her lawyer than her actual lawyer. Claire's eyes suddenly darted around. Jenna, tell me the truth. What? Are you and my little uncle dating? Jenna was startled, and a blush immediately crept up her face. Don't be ridiculous, what proof do you have? First, Claire waggled a finger, my uncle hates trouble, but when it came to your situation, he didn't find it troublesome at all. If you were in trouble, Ethan would help you too, Jenna retorted. Right? Well, yes, because he's my little uncle, Claire said matter-of-factly. But you're different. You're not related to us by blood besides. Jenna Graham, you've gotten bold. You don't even call him little uncle anymore. You still want to deny you're dating him. Seeing Jenna's face turn beet red on the screen, Claire said, annoyed. So you are dating and you didn't tell me, and my uncle is a cradle robber, preying on someone so close to home. She rambled on for a while before getting back to the point. Actually, it would be great if you married my uncle. After all, men out there are unreliable. Although my uncle isn't exactly reliable either, I'll be there to keep an eye on him, then you'll truly be my family. Just as Jenna was feeling touched by her words, Claire started winking. I just don't know if I should call you Jenna or Auntie from now on. Claire? Yes, I'm here, Claire said, basking in the sun and sipping from a straw. I'm off to enjoy my husband's pampering. Bye, Jenna, I'll interrogate you properly when I get back. The video call ended. The dark screen couldn't reflect Jenna's flushed face. She remembered the rule Ethan had set recently. Every time she called him by the wrong name, she would get a kiss. She had been forced to change how she addressed him, and now she was terrified. The mere thought of the words, little uncle, made her legs go weak and her face turn red. Ethan had just finished his work and came home to find Jenna staring blankly at her tablet. Done with your work at the magazine? Just finished a video call with Claire? Yeah. What are you spacing out for? Ethan pinched her cheek. Are you thinking about going on a trip too? No, Jenna said. She did want to, but now was not the time. She looked at Ethan nervously. Can I go see Simon one time? After much pleading and cajoling, Ethan finally agreed. Prisoners were allowed one visit a month. Jenna waited patiently for 2 weeks, and Ethan arranged it for her. Simon was much thinner, his head shaved, and his face haggard. Looking at Jenna through the glass, he pursed his lips and after a long silence managed a soft, I'm sorry. You should be, Jenna said. You shouldn't have planned to tie me down to help you pay off your debts and tried to sleep with me. Simon, when I found out the truth, I was shocked. I never knew you were that kind of person. Jenna, I'm sorry, Simon repeated, his head bowed. At first, I just saw all that glamour and wealth and I wanted it too. That's why I started gambling online. I won a lot of money. He looked up at Jenna, his voice choked with emotion. That day, I took the money and bought you a very big diamond ring. Jenna's hands clenched under the table. She then gently placed the ring on the tabletop. I know, Jenna said, her eyes lowered. But Simon, that's no excuse for taking such a risky path. I've been poor for so many years, and Claire has shown me so much of the world, but I never once thought about doing something wrong. You can still return this ring. Have you paid off your gambling debts? If not, I'll return it and you can use the money to pay them off. Jenna took a deep breath. Simon, let's break up. After a long pause, Simon gave a bitter laugh. Large tears fell from his lowered face, splashing onto the table. Don't return it, he sobbed. Jenna, I sold the house and paid off the loans. I want to keep the ring. Okay, Jenna nodded. I'll mail it to your family's address. Goodbye, Simon. Goodbye, Jenna. Jenna turned and walked away. She was grateful for the time Simon had spent with her, but she was also furious at his motives. She couldn't accept that someone could be so malicious, yet she also pitied the proud, bright, and dazzling young man he once was. That was a past Simon could never return to, and it was hers as well. A soft honk, as if urging her, broke her reverie. She opened the car door and saw Ethan's silent profile. What did you talk about? I'm not telling you, Jenna said, sticking her tongue out as she fastened her seatbelt. Let's go, time to go home. Are you going to see him again? Probably not, Jenna shook her head. After he gets out, I doubt he'll contact me. Why are you asking so many questions? Just drive. Jenna Graham, you little rascal, Ethan laughed. Use me and then toss me aside. Hee hee, Jenna leaned over, her cheek resting against his arm. Tell me you like me, I like you, and do you love me? I love you. All right, Jenna shrugged, settling back into her seat. It seems the great CEO is deeply in love with me, has been for years. That's a fact. Silence fell in the car. As Ethan turned onto the main road, he heard the girl beside him whisper, I love you too. I know. And that was all that mattered.